Hey guys, welcome back to Beyond the Net. I know it's been a while. I feel like I haven't talked to you guys in a long time. I have been in spring volleyball and it's been very long. I feel like the last time I talked to you guys, we were still in 8-hour segments and now we're in 20 hours. And today I kind of just wanted to talk about what I'm struggling with right now and like hoping to like help some people kind of understand that it's okay to be struggling as an athlete, especially when you're in off season, and even if it doesn't sound glorious all the time, it's still going to be okay. So I think the last time I talked to you guys was before spring break, and yeah, because it was with Leandra. And I was talking about how much I loved spring volleyball, which I still do. I love spring ball. I think it's great to be able to hone in on your skills. But it's definitely gotten a lot harder since we're in 20 hours now. But I feel like we're over the hump. Like I got over the hump. I was struggling a lot the first 3 weeks of 20 hours, like right when we got out of spring break. I just emotionally did not think I was going to be able to handle it. Like, disclaimer, like every time I leave my house, like leave home in Nashville, I cry. I just can't. Like, I had never liked being at home before. I really didn't. Like, it was not my safe place, but it has just turned, it's just like the tables have turned on that, and I love being at home now, and I miss it so much, and I miss my mom and my brother and my sister, even though she's living her best life in Copenhagen right now, so I'm not too worried about her. But it's been really hard, quite honestly. Like it has been an adjustment, which I also think it was hard because I wasn't expecting that. Like I thought that it would be harder to be here in the fall because we don't ever get to go home. But I came back for Christmas. That was really hard. Like it was just harder to adjust, but because I wasn't new and we had some new people, I think it was a little bit easier because I knew things were going to start off slow because we had a new strength coach, we had a new coach, we had a new assistant coach, and we had some new players. So I thought like that kind of gave me some comfort because I wasn't going to be the new one this time. And then, so we did 6 weeks of just 8 hours, and I liked it. It was good. I mean, it was hard to get up early every day of the week, but I liked it. It was slower. And then we went on spring break, and I had felt like I had given everything. Like I was so drained. I had no energy left. Like when I got home, I just like slept. Like I didn't feel like I could do anything. And then we came back from spring break, and that is when I really just started to struggle a lot. Like, it was very emotional leaving home because I just felt so much pressure all of a sudden, and I just was so anxious about starting 20 hours, and I felt like I was starting all over. Like, I felt like I was starting the spring all over again. And I did not like that. I was so overwhelmed. I did not think I was gonna make it, like especially the first week back. Like I was struggling a lot. Like the first Monday, so basically the first day we got back, I woke up and I went to workouts, and I came back to my dorm and I just laid in bed all day. I was so drained. I was so emotionally I just felt so off, and it's been really hard to get back into it, like, and it's been 3 weeks, and like that whole week, like I cried all the time, like in between practices, in between classes, like I went back to my dorm and I just cried. I just needed to get it out. Like I just felt so emotional, and I think I just felt so stressed out and anxious, and I went to talk to my therapist, and I kind of explained to her how I felt because I think I was so surprised by how I felt because I didn't feel like this in the fall. And I kind of explained to her, like, it's so hard to go from almost for lack of a better term, like freedom during spring break. Like you're in control of your own schedule, like you get to rest, you can work out on your own time. No one is like needs you to be in certain place at a certain time, and you just get to like be with the people you love, like just a no stress zone to then, I think to then shifting so fast to 20 hours. I felt like I was being followed around by like a rain cloud. I just felt so bad and I just didn't feel like I could do it. And when I'm in those moments, like I explained to her, like I want to psych myself out. Like I want to almost pretend like I'm sick or like make myself sick. Like my body, like I get so anxious that sometimes I get sick, or like tell myself, I try to like think too far in the future, and then I just get so overwhelmed because that's a lot of time. Like, and so I had to talk to her, and I had to like almost like talk about it and just explain to her that I was feeling unwell, and like I get kind of scared when I start to feel that. I was just very sad, and I get scared when I feel that sad because I don't want to go back to how sad I was in the past. And sometimes I don't know when to tell like what is what. And it definitely felt the same. But this time it was different because it had a cause. Like I was coming back from home, and that can be hard. And I think that people don't give that enough credit sometimes. Like I just came back from Easter, and I mean I was only home for 3 days, if that. So I think it's a little different. Like it's been a little easier because I didn't get as acclimated with home because I was only there for like 72 hours. But I was talking to a bunch of my teammates, and they were like, yeah, it's sad. Like it's sad leaving home, even if you've already done it a million times. Like especially, I feel like especially as an athlete when you're coming back to so many responsibilities, and that can be a gift and a curse at the same time. Like, and I feel like that's okay. And I was talking to my counselor about it, and she was just like, I sometimes feel like when people say give everything you have, but when you don't have a lot, that's not acceptable. And I think that statement is so contradictory, because on that Monday we came back, I had like 20% of my 100%. And I was making myself feel worse because I knew that wasn't gonna be enough, no matter who told me like just give everything you have. But if all you have is 20%, I feel like that's still not enough. Like that's still not okay. You need to give more, even if you don't have any more to give. And I feel like right now in this like sports culture, I feel like some people want to say, hey, like I know some days are bad, but just give everything you have. But if you don't have a lot, I almost feel like you have to have an explanation, and like it has to be valid. Like I was talking to her, I said I felt like I have to be sick, and like that has to be my excuse because it's physical. I still feel like mental like diminish is not taken as seriously, because people can like, oh, she's nervous, or oh, like she just doesn't want to do the workout, or no, like that's genuinely not it. Like I just didn't have a lot to give. Like I was just very upset, and I explained that to her, and she was like, I agree. She said, we hear that all the time down here in their department, like athletes that feel like they're giving everything they have, they just don't have a lot to give. And I think especially towards the end of the season, athletes, like their tank starts to drain so fast because they're just so tired. And I will say, I think that's why it's important to lean on your teammates. But at the same time, like it is such a personal experience that I think people just need to be more understanding, and that not everyone is owed an explanation. I think I needed to understand that, especially that week, that like you give everything you have, and if someone has a question, you just say like, hey, I wasn't feeling great today, or hey, like I don't want to talk about it, I gave everything I had, or nothing, because you really don't owe anyone an explanation. And I think like as athletes, and I can only speak for athletics because I'm an athlete, and I'm sure it's true for other like circumstances, but I just feel like that's not acceptable. And I think that's where a lot of the pressure that I felt that week came on. Is I knew I wasn't going to have a lot to give. Like, I felt like an emotional wreck. Like, I was crying all the time, like literally in between, like before practice, after practice. Like, it was rough. Luckily we got over it, and I think a lot of that came from, for starters, I was realizing I was having so much anxiety around, like, what if I can't get through a hard workout? That's never happened to me before, so I don't know why all of a sudden I had that. Like, I've never not been able to get through a workout. But my therapist kept saying to me, what happens if you don't? And I kept realizing, like, I don't have an answer to that. Because, like, the truth is what happens if you don't? Nothing. I think, like, for me, I personally, like, I just want to be able to do it. I think more for myself than for anything, but I have to remind myself, like, if you have to stop, it's okay. Like, you're not going to get everything on the first try. It's not going to be perfect. Like, there are some days that you're going to hit your 100% and it's just not going to be enough. And I think that for athletes, that's so hard to, like, grasp and swallow, because I feel like as you evolve as an athlete, your 100% gets bigger and bigger, but there are points that you're going to hit that and it's just not going to be enough, and there are days that you're just going to have to call it. And I haven't hit that point yet, and I think it still makes me very nervous and anxious to think about that. But sometimes you just don't feel good, or sometimes you're just like, I gave everything I have, like, I'm sorry, that's not enough, but it just isn't. And I will try again, because we will have another workout. There's a good chance you have another workout the next day. And I had to talk about that with her a lot, because for some reason it just was giving me so much anxiety. Like, what if I don't make it through? But at the end of the day, who cares? I know my teammates won't care, because everyone has been there. Like, I thought about a lot of teammates that have been there, and girls that haven't been able to make it through at that moment. They progressed and got there, and the judgment just isn't there. Like, I can't even explain to y'all, like, why I have so much anxiety around that, but I will say, like, I want everyone to know that I think that's very normal. Like, as athletes, we want to push ourselves so hard, almost to the point where it makes us nervous, where it makes us like, oh, like, when do I call it? When do I keep pushing? Like, I think, like, that fine line, it's so hard for people to find. I know I haven't found it yet. And I just think that's so difficult for people to understand sometimes, is that, especially now with, like, the world we're in, everyone is going through something at a certain point. And I think that judging people is just so wrong for that exact reason. Like, I was talking to my teammates, and one of them asked, like, do you really think everyone is giving 100%? And I said, I don't think that that's my place to decide who's giving 100% or not when I don't know what's going on in their life. Because I think to say, like, oh, you're not giving 100%, but if that person's, like, mourning a death, or it's just emotional that day, or, like, is hurting and they haven't told anyone, like, so many things like that. Like, if you're gonna say something like that to someone, ask them how they're doing, or, like, at least know them well enough to know, like, I can say this, and if something is wrong, they'll tell me. But that was my response to her, because I'm like, there are days that I feel like I'm not giving my normal 100%, but I'm still giving everything I have. And I feel like in this world that we live in, like, I think it's getting better for sure, but I think that there are still parts of that concept that aren't very accepted, and you always want to push your athletes as hard as you can, and I totally understand that. But at the same time, I think, like, it's so important to then check in with them as well, and, like, see how things are going. And, like, things can change so much on a day-to-day basis that judging before you ask, or before you even try to understand, I just feel like is so wrong. And that's, like, where a lot of my anxiety comes from, is I know people do that, or I assume people do that, and for some reason I don't want to seem weak, even if it's just weak in their minds. Even though I know I'm being strong, but they think I'm being weak, I still don't like that. And I know like a lot of people feel that way, and I wish that that wasn't the case. I don't know, I hate that. I just don't like that because I wish, I don't know, I just wish there was a little more understanding where when it comes to like the trust in your players and your teammates, and like if you really think that they're not giving 100%, but you know that person and they normally give 100%, there's a 95% chance something's going on. And you snapping at them is most likely only going to make it worse. And I say that knowing that that there's like a whole like controversy, and there has been for a long time, about athletes being soft, like in this generation, because of the mental health and just because of like emotions. But I think it actually makes us really strong. I don't think it makes us soft. I think, yes, there are days where it's harder and there are days where it can make us a lot stronger. But I think when it comes down to it, your emotionally strong athletes are going to be the ones that are going to be able to put the ball away or when it's needed. And I think that people who crack under pressure are those that are not supported, and those that feel like if they mess up, the whole world is going to end, and that leads to more mistakes. And so I think that saying that this generation is soft when it comes to athletes is a very small-minded view, because I think that, yes, athletes are different in this generation than they were in the one before, but I think that we're stronger. And I think that even if we physically aren't, I think we emotionally are. And I think that that proves in sports like basketball and volleyball. When you see women's sports like thriving now, how do you think those athletes got there through all the adversity and hardships? Like, they didn't get there being perfect all the time or being mentally able all the time. Like, they needed support and they needed to have bad days. You can't force good days out of people. It never works. It just creates fakeness. It just creates fake energy, fake achievements, fake things like that. And I think if you just give a person time, it will get better and they will come out the other side stronger. And I just wholeheartedly believe that. And I think I think part of not the problem, but we have last generation of athletes coaching this generation of athletes. And I think that's where the controversy comes in, because that generation thinks we're weak, yet they're coaching us. And not in all circumstances. Like, I've had coaches basically my whole life who have been very supportive. And so that's not always true, but I know especially in like men's sports, I see it, like it seems to be true in some scenarios, and like, especially I feel like in football, because they're supposed to be super strong or whatever. But I will say, like, I think the generation after us is going to be different than this generation. But I think the willingness to learn and understand is what is so important. Because as I talked about, like, what I struggled with are the anxieties I'm talking about right now and how it's affecting me. And if it's affecting me, I know it's affecting athletes all around me, because I see it in my teammates. I see it in people from other sports, especially girls, because I'm a girl, so, you know. But I do feel like I see it everywhere, especially when you hit the big stage. Like, I feel like in the volleyball national championship this past year, I feel like a little bit of that happened, like just anxiety and just young versus old. And I think that it happens all the time. I think people want to label a team or a person, and then that, like, strong, weak, and they want to stick with that label. And it's like, that's another barrier people have to break through, or another adversity they have to come to peace with. And that creates more emotional tragedy, because then you're like, oh, we're going to label you weak while you've been fighting for years to overcome depression, anxiety, like stress-induced anxiety, like things like that, and you're just, now you have another label to overcome because those people aren't willing to understand or take a second to talk to you. And when I was talking to my therapist, she was like, we feel like our hands are so tied down in our department because we don't feel like we can do anything about the anxieties or the stressors you guys have. We can only talk to you about it. And I know that they want to act. And I think it's hard for them because I think there's that fine line between like emotionally weak and physically weak, and people want to like put them together when in reality they're not. And both need to be worked at, but when you like are sick, no one questions that. But if emotionally you need a day, people are going to ask questions. And I feel like once we start treating mental illness like a physical illness, I think that it will be understood more and less questions will be asked. And I think that that's when people's anxieties will start to go down a little bit because they're feeling more understood without being judged. And I think that that comes with time and people speaking out about it and like struggles that happen online. And honestly, when you see a person fail in front of thousands of people watching them, that's when people want to talk about it. Like, oh, what happened to her? Like, what happened to him? Like, how did this get to be? And then you want to talk about it. But we could have prevented that if we had talked about it before. And I think we're doing a really good job of talking about it now, but I will say, like, none of my anxieties hit me as hard as they did the weekend I came back from spring break, because I think I realized what it was like to feel none of them and what it was like to just feel almost like free and just like so stressless and just get to rest and get to take care of myself, and like didn't have class, didn't have workouts, didn't have practice, didn't have games, didn't have to like figure out a way to feed myself. Like, what time am I going to do? How am I going to do that with what time? Like, and so I think all those stressors put together right after absolutely none of them, it just hit me so hard. And that's why I think it's so important to talk about it, because for the past few episodes, I feel like I've been like super happy, which I am. I am happy, but I think like I have still been, it's been hard. It has been a struggle being back in the spring for some reason. I would say like the spring has been hard. And I get nervous to say that because, I don't know, I don't want to admit it, but it's okay. Like, it's hard. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that I see results, though. And so I think that helps me to keep going. Like, I'm seeing results from the work I'm putting in, and so that's helping me to keep going. And I hope that that motivates you guys to understand that there will be results. And no, they're not going to come overnight, or maybe not even in a season, but they will come, because eventually things come together, and where you're supposed to be is where you're at. And it's taken me so long to even like say that out loud or comprehend that, because I always think that we can be pushing ourselves harder as athletes. Like, there's always something we can be doing, but I have to force myself to come back into the moment and realize, like, I'll tell myself when I'm asleep, like right when I'm about to go to bed, my brain starts to just go. And I have to tell myself, Elizabeth, all you're trying to do right now is fall asleep. That's your only task. That's the only thing you have to do. Because if I don't focus on one thing, my anxiety skyrockets, because I know I have so many things to do, or so many things I can be doing. But the truth is I can't do any of that at that moment. All I can do is be in that moment. And I think as busy people, as hard workers, as athletes, as business people, as any person really, you can always be doing something, because we live in such a achievement-based world that you always feel like you have to be doing something. And I think that as much as that is true, taking care of yourself should also be qualified as doing something. Like getting a good night's rest, or taking a long shower, putting on a face mask, buying yourself flowers, watching a movie. Yes, those things may seem lazy or small, but if it's taking care of you and it's going to make you better for the next day, it should be qualified as doing something. And I think I think that we don't. I think we qualify it as laziness or not wanting to work hard, and I think that that's a mistake. Because I think like that week that I was back and I was struggling, I had to like take a lot of time for myself. And so I couldn't really do anything. I literally only did what was asked of me. And even though that's a lot, because we're always doing something, at night I took long showers, I put a face mask on, I would get a dinner that I liked, I would try to watch a movie or a show that I liked. I can't express enough how important it is to take care of yourself, and the second you think you're being lazy, to understand that taking care of yourself is more important than anything else you could be doing at that moment. Because it can't be quantified. You are the most important person in your life at that moment, and when you need something, the only person that can give it to you is yourself. And so you need to stop and breathe and be like, yes, I could be doing my homework assignments right now, but I'm really overwhelmed and I'm really stressed out, and me looking at all my homework assignments right now is just gonna make me more overstimulated. So instead, I'm gonna go get in the shower, try to calm down, and then come back to it. 'Cause time moves on. And you know what? You'll get another hour the next day to do homework, and hopefully you're less stressed out. And maybe because you took the time to take care of yourself, you'll be able to accomplish more with more quality. Like, I know when I feel better, the quality of my workouts, my homework, my reps are better because I feel like I'm rejuvenated. I feel like I have energy, and it's not fake energy. I feel like as athletes so much we give fake energy because we're so tired. And I think once you take care of yourself, you come to learn that that energy becomes real. And I think that's such a good thing because it's so hard. It's so hard to accomplish real energy, I feel like, especially when you're just going. And so when you take a moment to breathe and you can give real energy, you feel so much better. You feel more accomplished because you realize that that was genuine and you worked for it. Like, it's hard to give energy. It's not one of the easier parts of a sport. Like, yes, it is a controllable, or what people would call like what you can control, but that doesn't mean it's easy. I think some people qualify those under the same umbrella, and I would put them under the same umbrella, but I wouldn't say that makes them easy, or that makes them just like, oh, like obviously I should do that. Like, yes, you should. But if you can't, that doesn't mean you're being a worse athlete or a worse teammate or a worse person. You just don't have that energy to give that day. And I didn't. For a very long time when I got back, I did not have any energy to give. And I tried my hardest, and it was very draining. When the weekend finally came, all I did was sleep. And I was so happy when the weekend came, and I didn't have to do anything for like 48 hours. But yeah, like, this is hard, and I've been struggling, like I have. And I think to come on and say that I haven't would be a disservice, and just to talk about something else, like, I don't know, I feel like that'd be wrong. Like, yes, it is there are parts of being a college athlete that are glorious, and there are parts that are not. There are parts that are really hard, and I think, especially now, like, for example, like, we're in March Madness, and you see these teams in the Final Four, Elite Eight, in the championship match, and you're like, oh my God, like, look at those kids, they're amazing. How do you think they got there? Like, how they got there was not glorious. Them being there, yes, that's amazing, and that is hard work paid off 100%, but it wasn't always fun. Hey Hokie Nation, this is Elizabeth Aylward. I'm a freshman volleyball player. Follow my channel on triumphnil.com and subscribe today.